Hey y'all, I'm Val with Our Forever Farm. Today we're doing something just a little bit different. It was time for me to mix some of my spices to make some spice mixes, and I thought I'd bring y'all along and show you how I do it. The first one I'm gonna make is the ranch dry, like you buy in the envelope and you pay probably over $1 for it, I bet. I hadn't bought it in so long I wouldn't know. That's the first one we're gonna make, and most of the time, if you're like me and have spices, you have these things in your pantry. And we're in a pantry challenge, and so we're using what we have, and I'm out of ranch dressing mix. Making the dry, we're not making the dressing, we're making the dry where you can turn it into anything you want. You can marinate with it, there's a lot of things you can do. You can make your salad dressing, you can do a whole lot of things. So I'm gonna show you as I do this where you can follow along, and I'll tell you what we're using and how much, and I'll also put the recipes in the description box. So we're going to do 3, maybe even 4 today. So just get a good look of all what we're using. That's all that's in that envelope that you buy and you run out of, and you have to run to the store to get it, and we don't have to run to the store to get it because we're going to make it. All right, let's get busy. I usually start mine out in a jar unless I'm making a big batch. This is the jar I'll store it in, and I'll tell you how long it lasts and everything. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna put 2 tablespoons of parsley flakes in this little jar. Now, if you prefer to do it in a bowl, that is fine, because I will be spilling some, but I won't waste it. I'll get it back up. So this is a 2 tablespoon measurement. The next thing we're gonna use is we're gonna use dried dill, and all I have is the dill weed, and that is fine. And we're gonna do 2 teaspoons of the dried dill. If you don't like that in it, just leave it out. 1, 2. Next, I'm using garlic powder. Now, I have a lot of my spices in jars, but it's because I buy them in a bulk and I use so many of them. So we're gonna do 2 teaspoons of garlic powder. It amazes me that we really, most of the time, have these products in our home. And if you read on the back of the envelope, you'll have a whole lot more things in it, a whole list of things in it that shouldn't be in there, but it's to make it last longer. This is 2 teaspoons of onion powder. We're gonna do 2 teaspoons of the dried onion flakes. Teaspoon of black ground pepper. We're doing 1 teaspoon of fine sea salt. Honestly, y'all, I've used every kind of salt there is, and you can use whatever salt you want. Just use fine in this. Next, we're going to use dried chives, and I've got the freeze-dried, and I've just got this little thing of it, so I need to work on that this summer and not freeze-dry, but dehydrate my own. So 1 teaspoon of dried chives. That's easy to dehydrate. Now, there we are. And then I take mine and I just shake it in the jar. Normally I double my recipe, but for video's sake, I just did 1 recipe of this. If you want a finer mix than this, put it in the food processor, or you can grind it up, with one of those little, what I'm talking about. But I like mine just like this, and I just shake it up. There's one other option that you can have, and this is optional. I don't put it in mine, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. It's the buttermilk powder. Use 1/3 of a cup in this, but that is optional. And the reason I don't is because if I'm making the dressing out of this dry, which I usually don't, I usually just make the dressing itself a recipe, and I'll show you that on another video. Like I said, it doesn't store on your shelf long enough if you put this in it. If you put this in it now, buttermilk powder, this will only be good in your refrigerator for a month. The way I just made it without the buttermilk powder is I made it, and it will be good for a year on your pantry shelf. And I like that. I can add the buttermilk if I need it into this. So that's the way I make one single batch. So 3, if I remember right, 3 tablespoons are what's in that envelope. So you've probably got about 6 here. If you want to make dressing out of this, you will use liquid buttermilk. You'll add 1/3 cup of mayonnaise and 1/3 cup of milk. I usually do half milk and half buttermilk till the consistency that I want. But like I say, I usually don't use this for my salad dressing. Ranch dressing mix in your pantry all the time for all those recipes that call for that. So that didn't take anything. And like I say, I usually do a lot more than this to fill up my jar. But for video's sake, I wanted to do that right there. Ranch dressing mix, the dry. Next, we're going to do the taco seasoning. Everybody uses that. And you always buy the little packets. Well, we can do it right here at home. So like I said, we're doing the taco seasoning. I've already got some in the jar that I haven't used. And we all can use this. You know, you always think, oh, I'm gonna make tacos. And the way I used to be when I was younger is I thought, oh, I can't. I don't have that little packet. Yeah, you can. You can make it yourself. So good practice to get into if you're into cooking, to get into buying different spices. Maybe to start your spice collection, maybe pick up 1 or 2 at a time. And I mean, they're good for like a year, probably more than a year, probably 2. Mine lasts more than a year. And if you don't use them often, you can keep them in the freezer. You also could put oxygen absorbers in your spices and keep them that way. But if you're like me and cook all the time, you don't want to have to depend on one of those little packets from the store. Oh no, I can't make tacos. I don't have the seasoning. So we're going to make it today. And like I said, I've already got some in my jar that I haven't used, but I wanted to make it for y'all. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use 2 teaspoons, let's see, where's my teaspoon, of chili powder. Just plain chili powder. I'm going to put it in the jar. All right, I got the camera down here where y'all can see it better. So 2 teaspoons of chili powder. Most everybody's going to have that if you cook at all. Next, we're going to use 1.5 teaspoons of paprika. I erased my chalk on here, but this is smoked paprika, but you can use any kind of paprika you want. And we're going to use 1.5 teaspoons of paprika. And we're just going to put them in the jar. That's tablespoons. Let's see if I have a... Here's a half teaspoon. We're going to do a 1/2 teaspoon of paprika. So that's 1.5 teaspoons of paprika. This is so easy to make. You can spend, I don't know, 30 minutes maybe, and make you some of these up, and you'll have it ready. And you'll have more than the packet, I promise. So now we're going to add 1 teaspoon of onion powder. Not onion salt, but onion powder. We're just going to put it in the jar. Next, we're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of sea salt. And honestly, y'all, like I told you in the other one, I have used different kinds of salt, but it does call for a fine salt. If you don't have a fine salt, you can put all this in the food processor, I had to think. Next, we're going to use 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. Next is a 1/2 teaspoon of ground cumin. Next is a 1/2 teaspoon of oregano. So this is oregano, and we're using 1/2 teaspoon of dried oregano. Let's put my lid. Now we're going to use a 1/4 teaspoon, and I'm just going to measure this, guessing at it, of black pepper. You can do it to taste also. And this is optional. Cayenne pepper, if you want your taco seasoning a little hot, and I do like mine just a little hot. And I just put a pinch in there of cayenne pepper, just a little bit. And then you can adjust it when you cook it. You also can do a red pepper flakes, and I just do a pinch of that. And you can always add more of those when you start to cook your tacos. Well, if I can get that on. And that's all, y'all. We're just gonna stir it up. So always put a label or mark on your lid what this is. So this is taco seasoning mix. This is the dry. Just like the ranch, you can just shake it up like this or stir it up, or you can put it in the food processor if you want it ground up a lot. So there we have it, taco seasoning mix. Upside down. Taco seasoning mix, just like you buy in the store without all the bad stuff. This is really good, y'all. Really good. So just shake it up. Both of them. Just shake, shake, shake. So we've done ranch and we did taco seasoning. So the taco seasoning, just like the ranch, if you don't have any dairy or anything in it, this will sit on your shelf and be good for at least a year, maybe 2. But you'll use this up. Another thing, 2 tablespoons is a serving. So if I'm doing a pound of ground beef, I'm gonna sprinkle 2 tablespoons of this in my mixture, and I'm gonna add half a cup to a cup of water to get it to the consistency I like for my tacos. Easy peasy, right? This right here is the ingredients you're gonna use for my favorite instant recipe, seasoned salt. So as you can see, I have on the top of that lid seasoned salt. I keep this all the time. I love this. If there's any of these mixes that I wouldn't want to be without, it's this one. And it's just a really good thing. When I spatchcock a chicken or bake a chicken in the oven, I do a dry rub on my turkey too of this seasoned salt. So we're gonna start out, I had this salt out here. This is fine salt. We're gonna start out with a salt, and you can limit your salt intake by changing this recipe up the way you want to, and it will be just fine. But this recipe is a seasoned salt, so it does have a lot of salt in it. We're gonna do 1/4 cup of salt. I like sea salt and I like it coarse in mine, but you can use any kind you want. So this is a 1/4 cup of salt. So we're just gonna add that in the jar. This is a smaller jar. I probably should have got a bigger jar. So we're gonna do 4 teaspoons of ground black pepper. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're gonna do 1 teaspoon of paprika. Again, you can do this with the smoked or the plain. 1 teaspoon of paprika. We're gonna get the garlic powder out, and we're gonna use 1 teaspoon of the garlic powder, not the salt, the garlic powder. Next, we're gonna use half a teaspoon of onion powder. This is one that I really do like to use the cayenne in. I don't know why, but I really like to use the cayenne. It's not an option for me, but it can be for you. We're gonna use half of a teaspoon. Let's see, where's my teaspoon? Half of a teaspoon. And this is a little jar that was in a gift pack that I had, and I thought that is too pretty of a jar to throw away. That is so pretty. So you just made seasoned salt. It is so pretty, and I use it in everything. I use it about like I do my friend's garlic that she pickles. I use it. You can put this in the food processor if you want a finer salt, or you can use fine salt, and that'll help too. And just shake, shake, shake. So seasoned salt is what we just made. But again, this is something that can sit on your pantry shelf for at least a year. I say more because it's got salt. Salt makes it last longer. So we did our dry ranch, we did our taco seasoning, and we did our seasoned salt. So I was talking to my daughter the other day, and I was telling her I was going to do this video, and she said, "Mom, I buy seasoned salt." And that's the truth. Most people buy the dry ranch packets. People buy the taco season little packets. And things aren't cheap anymore. And like I say, we're using what we have. And I make these anyway because they're better. They don't have all those preservatives in it. It's really, really better. Here's the ingredients for the next one. And don't worry about writing it down or anything. I will have the recipes in the description box, or you can just follow along with me. The next one we use a lot in the winter. And I don't always want to have to run to the store and get that little packet of mixed spices that I can mix up on my own, just like all the other stuff. So we're going to make homemade chili seasoning, and this is so easy. And as you saw, very few ingredients. Do this in a little jar too. We're doing 1 tablespoon of chili powder. That's a half, is what this is, yeah, half. We're doing 1 teaspoon of cumin. We're doing a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder. This is a half, so I'm just going to fill it about halfway up. We're going to do 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder. We're going to do 1 teaspoon of salt. And we're going to do 1/4 teaspoon, which is half of that, of black pepper. And that's it, y'all. Shake it up really good. Chili seasoning mix. This recipe we used right here is enough for 1 pot of chili, about 6 servings of chili. So if you have more chili than 6 servings, you'll want to double this recipe. Again, I make a lot at one time, but for the sake of the video, I did it the easy way. So today, in just a very few minutes, we made the dry ranch mix that you need in a lot of recipes to make the salad dressing. And remember, if you use this for salad dressing, it's 1/3 cup of mayo, 1/3 cup of milk, or you can do the half and half, buttermilk and milk, and just to the consistency that you like your salad dressing in. The next thing we did was taco seasoning mix. Remember, 2 tablespoons of this to 1/2 cup or a cup of water to put in your meat. This is so good, so easy. These do not have any preservatives in them, y'all. None whatsoever. If you put them in an airtight container, most of them, I think the chili seasoning might say 6 months, but if I make a bunch, I've kept it longer than that. It's such an easy thing to do. And so, pantry challenge, we're using what we have. I was almost out of all these. My favorite of all these is the seasoned salt. I'm telling you, I love them all and they do their job. But this seasoned salt is so good on any kind of meat. If you want a dry rub for your meat, you can add whatever you want to this seasoned salt. Salt does not necessarily make your meat, when you marinate it, salty. It makes it good. It brings out the juices in your meat. This seasoned salt, I would never buy seasoned salt like you buy in the store. Looks like a spice and a certain brand name. I would never buy that. And again, if you don't like the consistency of these, this taco mix is all powder. The chili mix is all powder. The ranch has some flakes in it. And the seasoned salt, I wouldn't change a thing on this. But these 3 you could always put in the food processor or do one of them little grinder things. I don't have one of them. I need to get one. Here's a great start to getting stocked up for your pantry. And like I say, I usually double or quadruple the recipe. I love to teach skills on this channel. This is not necessarily a skill. This is trying to be more healthier by not having all those preservatives that they put in it in the store. When you can't read the name of what's on the package, I mean, come on. We need to change things up. And so today we did the dry ranch mix, we did the chili seasoning mix, and we did the taco seasoning mix and seasoned salt, my favorite. We're going to be doing more of these things later on. There wasn't cooking involved, but I am fixing to spatchcock a chicken tomorrow, and I'll use all of this on my chicken, every bit of it, and then I'll have to remake it. Hope y'all enjoyed it. Y'all go cook something.